This is the Haulin Assets podcast where we show you how to start and run your own trucking company. Ever wanted to go out on your own? Follow Chris as he goes through the highs and lows of running on his own authority.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Haulin Assets podcast. This is episode number 96. We're going to be talking about January 2022 financials. I'm very excited for this episode because there was a mystery at a certain point that will be revealed today. We're going to get there, but over there he is Chris. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, Craig. How you doing?
I'm all right. That was very enthusiastic.
Yeah.
You sound
I guess
like...
I'm excited to be here.
Apparently. It's jury's out as to why, but you're excited to be here. I'm excited. We're talking about January financials, and so as with all the financials episodes, I really encourage everybody to go to haulinassetsllc.com where you can check out full show notes, including the documentation for these financials episodes. So the profit and loss statement that we're going to be talking about, you can actually look at that. Every line item on there, including the stuff that we skip because we don't talk about it, it's all there. So if you want to chart the progress of Haulin Assets and do a little compare and contrast with your own efforts, you can do that there. So haulinassetsllc.com. Find us on Facebook. Let us know what you want us to talk about. We always love getting suggestions there. And lastly, leave a review if you enjoy what we do here. So, Chris, did I forget anything?
I don't think so.
Okay, I'm getting pretty good at this.
That was a lot of it. You are
after 96 episodes.
We're finally there.
Yeah, I feel like I'm getting there. All right, so before we do the financials, I always have to ask you what's going on. I know you have one update, and I think maybe two, but the one update I'm really excited for.
I feel like you kind of need to cue the angel music to talk about this.
Oh, great! Yeah,
we've been talking about it for so long.
You're making editing work for me, Chris. Come on.
Well, you don't have to edit anything. Just sing it. Come on, there you go. Hallelujah. You do the hallelujah chorus.
All right. So
truck number 5 is on the road.
Hey!
It's working.
That's not even the update I was looking for, but that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's the update I'm most excited about.
No doubt about it.
Now I'm trying to think, what other update should I be thinking about?
Well, so I know that you mentioned a couple episodes ago that there was a preventable loss.
We'll talk about that.
And you told me
too.
You were going to talk about it today, so I'm excited. But back to the 5th truck.
Yeah, truck number 5 is on the road, so we've got 5 trucks running, which is amazing. It's exciting. Finally, yeah. How many months later? November, December, January, like 3 months, almost 3 months late. Truck number 5's on the road.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, I was about to make a joke about not trying to take it up to Canada, but we'll leave that one alone. All right.
It'll get stuck, huh?
It's a joke, though. It will play well in like 2 or 3 years when everybody's forgotten about it.
Yeah, probably not.
So, Chris, anything else about truck number 5? I mean, now that it's out.
It's out in the wild. It's out there.
And that's it. Okay.
Making money.
There you go. So I should ask, when did it hit the road? Because we're going to be talking about January financials. Was it on the road during January at all? Okay.
It started this month. So I think just over a week.
Okay.
Basically at this point.
So when we get to the numbers in this episode, it'll be with 4 trucks on the road.
Yes.
Okay. Got it. So Chris, during the last financials episode, you mentioned that there was a huge expense that was avoidable? Is that the word we would go for?
Yep.
And you told me that you wouldn't tell me what it was. And to this day, I have no idea, but you told me you would reveal it. What was it? Yeah,
there were 2 things. One, it involves a driver, and the driver's no longer with us, so I feel like I can talk a little bit about it now. And 2, the pain was too recent. It was too soon.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
So I didn't want to talk about it at that point, but now I'm feeling better. A little bit of time's passed. Time eases pain.
There you go.
And I'm ready to talk about it.
Apparently 4 weeks.
So you're going to be my psychiatrist now. Is that okay?
Oh, it's you know what? I've been preparing for this for my whole life. Okay, Chris, I'm ready.
Well, so it's a story, and in all reality, there's actually some pretty good nuggets of wisdom we can glean from this story for a couple things, but. One, so what happened is we've got a driver, and this particular driver, I mean, he's a good guy, don't get me wrong, but he was, we'll put it this way, our most needy driver by far.
So good guy doesn't always mean good employee.
Yeah, exactly. And he didn't really fit our culture super well. And so, you talk about the 90-10 principle where 90% of something is or 10% of something takes up 90% of something like this.
Right.
In this particular situation, this one employee took up like 90% of our time.
I usually hear it as 80-20, which makes sense if
That
you've got
too.
five drivers.
Yeah,
You have
there you
one
go.
driver who
Look
is,
at you using real math in a real life situation.
They say never do math live on the air. Oops.
I think you just nailed it.
I think it worked out. Okay.
All right. So he was just, a lot of work working with him. And anyway, he was in the middle of a trip, starts not feeling super well, asks if we can delay the delivery by a day so he can just kind of
Chill.
take it easy, chill. And so we work with the shipper broker on this particular load and work that out. So he takes some time the day, plus he takes the next couple days slower than he should have. And lo and behold, he ends up being, a decent amount behind on this load. And because of that, it was a load that was going from somewhere back east, maybe Midwest, going, I think, into Washington. And because he was delayed, by this point, he's delayed by like 2 days. And because he's delayed so much, by the time he gets to Oregon, I think he was going actually up into Washington, but he gets to Oregon and he's behind. And because he's behind, guess what he runs into?
Snow.
He runs into snow.
They don't call it the Snoqualmie Pass for nothing, right?
It wasn't the Snoqualmie Pass, but that is a bad one.
Yeah.
It was, coming up 84 into...
like into Pendleton-ish?
Yep, into that climb before you get into Pendleton. And he has to put on chains. If he would have been even the day before and only 1 day late, he would have missed the storm, wouldn't have had to do chains. And this is one of the issues with the driver is his attitude's just not the greatest. And so he's ticked off that he has to do chains. And in my opinion, from my vantage point, the reason he's having to chain is really because of his poor time management. I get that he was sick the 1 day, and we all get that,
sure.
Right? And some of us push through that better than others. And so he ends up having to chain, and he's mad that he has to chain. We always try to avoid it, but sometimes you have to. And in this situation, he has to chain, not because of us. Like we booked the load knowing that he wasn't going to have to chain. We'd looked at the weather and the weather looked clean, and it would have been clean if he would have been on time or even 1 day late. So anyway, he chains up, and it's been a while since he's chained. Okay. If you remember,
I remember your
the
struggles.
First time I chained, the first time never having chained before.
It was hilarious.
But I got it done and I did it right. Well, he did it half-assed. Oh, I can say that, right?
Sure.
Half-assed. Yeah. So he does it half-assed, and guess what ends up happening? Driving down the road, chains fly off. And to make a long story short, 3 tires, damaged air lines, a damaged fender, and damaged quarter panel.
Wow.
So and when I say it was roughly $3,500, it's the pain was too much, and I didn't go in and actually total exactly what it was. So I know it was at least that much, and it may have been more.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So $3,500.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
And the load got delivered, but did you have to take
3 days late?
Or 3 days late.
At that point, it was 3 days late.
Could you even collect anything on that?
On the load, we still got paid out on. Yeah,
okay.
The broker was good. They understand sometimes things happen with drivers. It got there. It just was a little bit late. But
Yikes.
It is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So 3 days and load gets delivered. I'm speechless.
This is good radio, Chris.
Yeah,
You're struggling to speak.
radio.
It's great radio. So you ended up letting the driver go over this issue?
I'm not done yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Your math isn't working again.
Oh my.
Yeah. Because I said at the beginning this was a $7,000.
Yeah.
And I just said only $3,500.
I was wondering.
We're not done yet.
Okay.
There's more to the story.
All right.
So he delivers that load and goes up and picks up the next load, and he's still got a bad attitude and still just like ornery at the world. And he starts to cut corners, and he pulls out of a loading dock, not having slid his tandems back to where they're supposed to go. So the tandems are all the way back to the rear. And do you know what happens when your tandems are all the way back to the rear?
Corner's wrong?
Yeah, you have to take extra wide turns, like not just wider than a normal semi-truck, but you've got to take extra wide turns. Well, he didn't do that. And so guess what he did? Damaged the fender on his neighbor truck.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so there's another $3,500 in damages, all within like a less than a 48-hour period.
Wow.
And so the way we kind of operate, and this is one of those areas like in trucking and really in business in general where I kind of have a hard time, and I'm not sure that I always do the right thing, is when to let an employee go. And we decided at that point we were going to have them. We got them all the way back home, and kind of had a sit down meeting with them, and decided to kind of give them another chance. And anyway, to make a long story short, one more trip out and back, and at that point, still facing some of the same issues. No more damage to the truck or anything, but just kind of the attitude and how he operates and being extra needy. We just decided to part ways.
Yeah, that's too bad. So what, if it wasn't the damages that finally pushed you over the edge? I mean, you're talking about the attitude. Is that essentially it?
It's really just the attitude. Just you take, for example, when he had to put the chains on, he's incredibly upset about having to put the chains on. And he calls up Nate, starts cussing out Nate, and just demanding that Nate find him a place where he can take the chains off. And it's like, dude, you're the one driving the truck down the road. You know what the conditions are like. You should know. And Oregon, along that stretch of road, has places to chain up and take chains off all over the place.
Yeah.
It's like
pretty common.
Yeah. That's not something Nate is going to be able to see. You're the person on the ground making things happen, doing the work. You should be able to tell when it's okay to take your chains off. And it's just that kind of stuff. Just always calling and having, Nate do something that really is a pretty simple task that a driver should be able to
Nate
do.
Being the
partner in Haulin Assets.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I just want to make sure people know who Nate is in case they haven't been around for a few episodes.
Yeah. We haven't talked about Nate for a while.
That's right.
And Nate's been doing absolutely awesome. He was way more patient than with this driver than I would have been.
So okay, so you've got somebody who's what would some of these warning signs be? They're impatient, argumentative.
Impatient. He just super argumentative, and to the point where like he doesn't really take accountability for his own actions. Like, maybe there were some things that we could have done a little bit different and a little bit better. Okay. But there's also things like he could have done different and better. But he always is pointing fingers at somebody else, always putting the blame somewhere else. And we talked about this in the last couple of episodes, right? Taking accountability. And if you don't do that, if you're always blaming somebody else, you're never going to improve because you don't think you need to improve because it's always somebody else's fault.
Right.
And that's where that was really one of my biggest issues with him is just, you can tell that you're never going to make headway with him because he's not seeing things the way that you're seeing. You're not going to come to some kind of common conclusion. And in my opinion, he's just not teachable and trainable. Because
right. Now, we've talked about the hiring process in a couple of past episodes and what you've gone through in your hiring process. Is this the kind of thing that you just can't necessarily catch? Like, I know you talked about, there's the interview, there's the resume, but you got to call the references. This seems like maybe one of those reasons you might really concentrate on references.
Absolutely. Sometimes that'll come out in references. It's a lot of times it won't come out in an interview because he's pretty well spoken. He's
best foot forward and all that.
Yeah, in the interview, best manners and everything. And so a lot of the times, unfortunately, there's no real way that I've ever been able to find where you can kind of screen for that. And sometimes it just takes a couple months working together to realize you're not a good fit for each other.
Right. Okay. Well, sounds like a rough situation. Sorry that he had to be let go. I'm sure it's not fun for him. It's not fun for you. It's not fun for anybody.
Yeah.
But shoot, is there anything else to say on the subject?
I hate the process for that, very reason. We don't ever like to let anybody go, but sometimes, and this is one thing I don't think I do very well is knowing when to let somebody go. And oftentimes it's probably better to just kind of rip the Band-Aid off. Like usually I've rarely regretted letting somebody that's not a good fit go early, but I've definitely regretted it way more often that I've kept them too long.
Yeah. So where did you feel like you landed on this one? Too early, too late? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, it's I guess an object lesson for anybody listening who's thinking about hiring some drivers. So I guess, I don't know, Chris, what would you do in the future? Like we said, there's no way to really screen for this. So do you do a probationary hire and say, hey, we're going to bring you on for 3 months. And then after 3 months, we'll reassess and see if we want to keep you on. What do you do?
That's one technique. Another, and a lot of this kind of depends on the state that you're based out of. Employment laws vary widely between states. To put it in kind of two broad categories, you have, I'm trying to think of the terms, at-will employment.
Right.
And what's the other one?
Oh, gosh.
I can't remember. Utah's an at-will state. So basically, it's a little bit easier to let people go if you just don't feel, you don't necessarily have to have cause to let somebody go. You can just say, hey, they're not a good fit for me. We're parting ways.
Right.
Other states, you don't have that same latitude. So a lot of it depends on your state. But, it's just one of those things that I think oftentimes it's better for you save both parties a little bit of pain if you just part ways quickly.
Right.
And you have to, I always like to give people second chances, but sometimes it's not worth the third and the fourth chance. Like, especially if it's early on and you're seeing these trends early, give somebody a second chance, make sure you're very clear in what your expectations are. And if you're still not meeting those expectations, let it go.
Right.
And in the evolution of your business, like if you're a brand new business with just 2 trucks and letting one person go and having a truck sit is a lot more painful than when you've got 5 trucks and only one of them sitting. So a lot of it's going to kind of, how long you're willing to kind of put up with that may also depend on how many trucks and drivers you have. Do you have enough trucks to kind of
cushion the blow
a little bit for a while? Then it's easier to do, and you should probably do it sooner rather than later. But there may be a good business reason to just kind of deal with it for a little while so that you don't have a 2 truck or one truck on your 2 truck fleet sitting for any significant period of time.
Well, speaking of second chances, Chris, I feel like we need a second chance to start getting into the numbers on this episode. We promised numbers, and we've been talking for about 15 minutes now about this.
Look at that.
So, did you like the transition? How was that?
That was good. That was smooth as butter. Is that what you say? Yeah,
Sure.
I'm taking your term.
Sure. What did I used to say? Oh, it doesn't matter. Okay, let's talk about numbers, Chris. January 2022. Give me good month, bad month.
Good month.
Good month. Okay, great. So
not the best month, but a good solid month.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get into the actual numbers. So total miles run. What are we at?
47,017 miles.
Okay. So call it 47,000 over. Now you said 4 trucks running last month. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's
a lot of miles for 4 trucks.
It is a lot of miles. That was a pretty good month as far as mileage goes.
Yeah, very nearly 12,000. Look at me doing math again.
Yeah, there you go.
Live on here. 12,000 miles per truck almost.
You're going to hurt yourself.
Never. Chris, I'm college educated, okay? I do numbers good. So that's total miles run. How much of it was Deadhead?
It was a little bit less than, even though we had higher miles, less than last month. So the total Deadhead miles was 2,452, which is 5.2%.
Okay. All right. So definitely an acceptable number there. Total revenue.
And this was actually a little bit lower than I expected. Especially we had one of the best paying big loads, actually the biggest paying load we've ever had. And the rate per mile was really good. But overall, so it was $114,170.
Okay.
So about $15,000 less than it has been the last several months.
And do we chalk that up to the time of the year? I mean, it's not November, December anymore. It's January.
Yeah,
so.
it is. I was kind of fixated on that one load and thinking that January is going to be a really good month. And this is still a good month, especially for a January.
Right.
But the rate per mile dropped. But I think a couple good things you can glean out of this month is we talked about it being a pretty high mileage month and a pretty low deadhead. And that's telling me that we're still finding loads really easy. When you have a good number of miles and load Deadhead, that means we're not having to go very far to find loads. There's still an abundance of loads. And so, February, I'm guessing, is probably going to hold tight somewhere around here, maybe even dip a little bit. That's your traditional, January dips from December, and then usually February is even a little bit lower, then it starts to recover in March.
Well, there's also 2 or 3 days fewer in February.
There are.
Yeah.
So I'm expecting we'll probably see a little bit more of a dip in February, but overall, I mean, you can't complain if you're getting $2.43 a mile in January.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. My brain, parents talk a lot about how, they'll always be my little girl or whatever. Like, you kind of get this picture of your kids stuck in your head and they're always 4 years old, and that's all you can see. All I can see is the rate per mile that you were getting for the first, 6 to 12 months that you were driving.
Yeah. So, we were lucky if we broke 2.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So when you say 243 a mile, I'm like, great.
Yeah. It's not bad. And we'll see that in the net income. It's not a bad month.
Speaking of which, so 243 all in rate per mile. What did that get as far as net with the revenue? So you said the revenue was just over 114. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what was net income? $29,339.41. Sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, it was a pretty good month. Not one of our better. I think we've had quite a few better ones in the last, of the last 6 months, but still, I mean, 4 trucks, 29,000. I mean, you're roughly $7,500 a truck. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I'd say
we'll take it.
Yeah, for like you said, for January.
Yep.
Okay, so anything that we want to pull out from the numbers this month and concentrate on from that P&L?
So yeah, a couple things to kind of take into account. So it was a good month, especially when you consider the fact that we replaced one driver that we've already talked about, and we added a second truck. The fifth truck. So the one driver came off the road. Well, we did the transition from the one truck to the other right at the end of the month. And so, considering that we essentially had one truck sitting for half a week longer than we probably normally would in doing that transition, and we're hiring another driver, going through all that, it was a pretty good month. And then you'll notice in the profit and loss, our office supplies and expenses are a lot higher than normal, $2,100. A lot of that is getting some of the equipment for the truck, like, the binders, the ELD stuff, the mounts and everything, all that's in there. The insurance is a little bit higher than normal, and that's bringing on that fifth truck. So there were quite a few things because we actually got the truck right at the end of the month. And so some of those expenses hit where we haven't got any of the revenue from the truck. And so, considering all of that, to still have nearly $30,000 in net income is a pretty good month.
Yeah, it sounds pretty good. So as things move forward, Chris, I know that you have a goal to get even more trucks on the road this year, if you can. Let me ask you a question, and this might be too big a question for now. We might want to do a whole episode on this, but do you have an end game? I've been interested in this for a while. Do you have an end game? I want to get this number of trucks on the road, and then Haulin Assets is as big as I want it to be. Or is it kind of grow until it explodes and dies?
That's a good question. I think it's probably closer to the latter.
Okay.
We haven't really set this is how big we want to get. But it's probably just as long as we keep enjoying what we're doing, finding success in it, being disciplined about it. I think we'll just kind of keep growing indefinitely. Yeah. Maybe we'll take over the world someday.
I'm looking forward to it because then I'll be the voice of a new generation, Chris.
Yeah, there you go.
Or something like that. Okay, cool. So anything else from the numbers that you want to pull out and go over?
I was thinking of talking. I've actually got a couple more things to talk about, and I'm debating. I want to talk a little bit about hiring drivers, but maybe we save that for another episode since we've already gone so long. What do you think?
I don't know. I think it depends on how much you.
Too. I've got another impact tip.
Well, are there any other numbers? Or
no,
we're good on the numbers.
We're good with the numbers.
So in that case, you know what? I think we got time, Chris. Right, nobody's going to be mad if you give us a little tidbit.
So I talked a little bit about hiring drivers, and we're all of a sudden near the end of this January, we had to, we let one driver go. So we had to find a new seat for that truck, and then adding the fifth truck, another driver. I think we actually had in the grander scheme of things, a very short transition in all of those. We don't have a whole lot of downtime in those trucks. And a big chunk of that is because of how Nate has really been kind of tackling the hiring piece of our business. And one of the things that I think we've done well is both, there's a couple of things. Both Nate and I have done a good job of keeping our driver pipeline full. And I kind of want to relate this to sales. If you've ever been involved in sales much, one of the things that we talk a lot about is your sales pipeline and your sales funnel. Do you, when I say sales funnel, do you kind of know what I'm referring to?
Chris, I worked in sales for 5 years.
All right, so you know what a funnel is.
I do.
You know
this is a bit like spreadsheets. So I understand it. I'm not glad you're bringing it up because it brings back some painful memories for me.
Well, but it's such an important thing. You look at the funnel just like the funnel that you use to when you're putting motor oil in your truck so that you don't spill the oil all over the place. You've got this little hole that it has to go into, so you use a funnel. So you picture that funnel, and the top of the funnel is really wide, and then the bottom of the funnel is really narrow. And when we talk about sales, and I kind of liken this to hiring drivers too, you've got to have a top of your funnel and you've got to have a narrow funnel. And the top of your funnel is the people that you're talking to try to get them interested in working for you,
right?
Drivers. So you feed that funnel by ads that you put out, and like classified ads or talking to people. And we've done all the above. We've had ads. We've had Nate and I have both talked to people. We've had our drivers talk to people to refer drivers to us. And so you may talk to 20 people about the job. And then of those 20 that you talk to, you may find 10 that say, hey, yeah, I'm interested in it. And so the 20 are the top of the funnel. Then the 10 are smaller. So that's where as the funnel's getting narrower. And of those 10, you may have 5 that you start to do some regular follow-up with, and you maybe give them an application that they fill out. And then of those 5, maybe you have 3 that fill out applications. So that funnel's getting narrower and narrower and narrower, right? And then of those 3, you may have 1 that you end up hiring.
Right.
So you start off with 20 people that you've talked to. It takes 20 to get to your 1 hire.
The right one.
Or it may be 20 to get to 2 hires. And so my point is that you always have to be filling that funnel. You always have to be talking to people. You always have to be putting leads in there. And Nate and I and our drivers have done a good job of that. And the other thing that we do really well is we constantly when we get those people that are interested, and we narrow it down to maybe those 5 who have really good interest, like the 5 that are going to apply for the job, we regularly, when I say we, Nate, regularly calls them like maybe once a month or so, and just, hey, are you still interested? Here's kind of our updated timeline when we think we're going to need to hire. And we, maintain that kind of relationship. And then when it's closer and we think we're within a couple of weeks of needing to hire somebody, we kind of really get the ball rolling on that hiring process. So I think doing something like that is really key to making sure you have kind of that constant stream of drivers, so that you're not, you have one quit and then it takes you don't even start the process until, that person's quit. And then it takes a month to fill the seat. And so the better job you can do at keeping that funnel full and keeping, the follow-up going, so that you're constantly talking to people, talking to those really good, strong leads, especially, makes it so that there's probably going to be less transition time. And so I think that's been kind of, at this point, been one of our keys to hiring, is really working that hiring funnel really well.
All right. Well, that sounded like an impact tip, Chris. I know it's not, because we still have one, but I like it.
Yeah.
And this is this would go for not just the person getting their 5th truck out on the road. This goes for somebody who is doing their very first hire. In a way, it's going to take you some time. You're going to have to fill that funnel to find the right person. So I think this is pretty applicable to just about anybody.
I think it's one of the most important things you can do in the trucking industry.
Yeah. All right. Well, Chris, let's get to an impact tip. Before we do that, I will say we were worried this would be a short episode, and it's not. And people should be sad about that. You know why?
Why is that?
Because you and I made a deal a few weeks ago, and I feel like we should just tell people. We should tell people up front what the deal is. Do you remember that if an episode goes less than 25 minutes, if we just get in, we get out, and we're done, then I will tell a story at the end of that episode.
Right. Yeah. So you're off the hook today.
So today I will not be telling a story, but
that's why you said to do the hiring piece.
We were already past 25 at that point. I think. No, I just want people to get excited. If you enjoy those post credits stories, then I will do some more in the future. So you should send Chris an email, tell him to hustle it up, get through whatever he wants to talk about.
Chris, shut your mouth.
No, okay. So before we do the impact tip, I'll just remind everybody, HaulinAssetsLLC.com for full show notes, for all the documentation from this episode and past episodes as well. So we'd love to see you there. You can leave comments there on the website. All right. So then we'll do an impact tip and we'll call it for today. So Chris, what are we talking about?
Scalability.
Scalability.
And we've talked a little bit about this in the past, but it's something I felt like bringing up again. This is really most applicable to guys who want to grow their trucking company. If you want to be an owner operator, and that's as far as you want to take it, and that's where you're happy at, then this probably isn't quite as applicable to you, but definitely is something that's incredibly important if you are going to grow.
Okay, so yeah, you have talked about scalability in the past, and this so the idea is, if I remember correctly, let me see if I've got the concept. Whatever you do, whatever systems you implement, whatever hires you make, however you structure your company, have in mind future growth. Yep. Right? So if you're going to buy this piece of software, well, if that piece of software is designed for a 5-truck fleet and you want to grow to 20, find some different software.
Yep. And start early with that different software. If you plan on being a 20-truck fleet and this software is really only good or is best for somebody that's a 5-truck fleet, you don't even want to start there.
Right.
Start what you're going to stay with long term. It's so hard to change systems and things. So just start with what you want to do long term early on.
Okay.
So, but that's not the impact tip itself is focus on scalability. And so if you're going to grow, you need to deliberately anticipate that growth, and you need to focus on making your systems and everything work well as you're small, so that when you grow, they don't become bigger issues. Like I've seen this time and time again with clients that have tried to grow, and a lot of times people can grow pretty successfully up to 10 trucks. Usually the scalability issue really becomes a big problem when you get over 10 trucks, because if you've got a little problem, usually you can manage it when you're small, but then as you get bigger, that little problem doesn't go away and it just becomes compounded.
So give me an example. What kind of problem would you be looking out for in this situation?
Like you take, for example, if you've got, I think one of our areas that we need to work on a little bit is how we do payroll. Right now, when you've got one truck doing payroll, or we've got 5 trucks. So 5 trucks doing payroll, and it probably takes us, I'm just estimating here, but let's say it takes us half an hour per truck to do payroll, because we've got to kind of go in and manually pull reports. We've got to manually do a handful of things, look at stuff. So it takes us 30 minutes per truck. If we already all of a sudden get up to 100 trucks, and it takes 30 minutes per truck to do payroll. That's
3,000 minutes.
That's 5 hours or 50 hours to do payroll. Well, that's more than one person's full-time job just to do payroll. And that's just not realistic. And so you find a system that works, and so that you may be able to take that payroll process from being 30 minutes to being more like 10 minutes per truck. And then if you got 100 trucks doing 10 minutes, that's a third of that. And so you're probably looking at more like 12 to 15 hours to run payroll, which one person can do in 2 days. And that's way more realistic. Right. And so that creates kind of a more scalable company.
Well, there you go. There's that scalability again. So focus on scalability. There's the impact tip. Chris, anything else on that?
I think that's good.
All right. Well, let's cut and run for today then. Thanks everybody for listening. We appreciate you sticking around. And we'll be back in a couple weeks with another subject. So we will see you then. Chris, have a good one.
You too. We'll see you later.